All right. So I understand a number of students are not clear on how things should work. They are not clear on how the strategic planning process goes. So this video is to quickly take you through the whole process. I am including certain things that I had not included before, so please pay particular attention. By the end of this lecture, you should have a general idea of everything and you'll be good to go. I mean, if any organization employs you as their public relations personnel, you should be able to put up a strategic plan and I'm sure they'll be happy with it. So let's go. The strategic planning process is made up of 4 main steps, which is formative research, strategy, tactics, and evaluative research. So these are the 4. And all we have been discussing this semester, the plenty things that are confusing you, they are one way or the other under these 4 steps. So I'm going to quickly take you through these 4 steps and remind you of what is supposed to be under the steps. I'm not going to go into too much details because we have done that already, especially with most of them. So these are the 4 steps of the strategic planning process. All right. So step 1 is formative research. Now remember, formative research, when we say research is formative, is the one you do at the beginning to get an idea of how the situation is. So that's why you analyze the situation, you analyze the organization. Yeah, when you say you're analyzing the situation, what is the circumstance that is facing the organization? So if it is GIJ, remember you were using GIJ as an example, we wanted to get students. So what is the situation? The situation is a lack of students. So you are analyzing the situation, find out what is their headache. You analyze the organization, you find out what is about the organization. You do what we call a PR audit. Yeah, so you check internally, how are they performing? When I say internally, the workers or GIG themselves, how are they performing? What is the organizational structure? Are there any internal impediments? All these go into analyzing the organization. Now, when you read this is what you don't want to hear, but when you read the book, today I'll be giving you page numbers. Yeah, strategic planning for public relations, Ronald Smith. When you look at page 97, you would see analyzing organization, you would see the PR audit chart so that you get a clearer picture of how to do a PR audit. But that's what you do when you're analyzing the organization. And then you come to analyzing the publics. You are a PR student, so I don't need to belabor this point. So that's a step 1, formative research. So under formative research, we have analyzing the situation, analyzing the organization, analyzing the publics. So that is what you do in step 1. Step 1. So you come to step 2. Now, this is the strategy. What is the desired situation? By when do you desire the situation? What is your overall plan? So the strategy is the overall plan. Yeah, what you want and how you want to get it. Yeah, okay. Now, under strategy, we have goals and objectives. We have treated this in class. We have tried to see how to design goals and objectives. So the first thing under strategy is your goal and objective. What do you aim to achieve? Because remember, before you can know your overall action and communication plan, you need to know what exactly you are seeking to achieve. So remember when we talked about goals, we talked about 3 types of goals: reputation management goals, relationship management goals, task management goals. And we gave some examples. When you come to objectives, we also have awareness objective. So when we say an objective and an awareness objective, an objective that seeks, for instance, to get attention or create awareness. When we say an objective is an acceptance objective, it seeks to get people to be interested or it seeks to get people to have a certain perception or attitude towards something, it means that the objective is an acceptance objective. When we say an objective is an action objective, it means that the objective is such that it wants to change behavior or opinion. So we're still under strategy, and we talked about the first one, which is goal and objective of a strategy, and we just expanded on goals and objectives. Moving on. So this is an example of goals to be the GIJ says to be the best communication institution in West Africa by 2024. Yeah, this could be a goal of GIJ or AUCC. Now, remember that this is a goal and it is not as detailed as an objective. That's why it's just to be the best communication institution in West Africa by 2024. But when it is an objective, remember your SMART objectives. So all you see here mostly are goals. Now let us look at a sample objective. You see, to pull in at least 45% of new customers for Bling Gym by November 2021. So it's specific. Is it measurable? Yeah. Attainable, realistic, time bound. You look at all these things before. So when you are setting an objective, remember this. Your awareness objectives and all those things we talked about. When you're setting goals too, you also know the difference. Now, before okay, I wanted to just talk about something else, but let's talk about positioning. Remember when we discussed positioning in class, I made mention that positioning is what you want to create, the impression you want to create in the minds of your target audience about your product or service. So what do we want people to think about us? We want people to think about GIJ as maybe the best communication institution in Ghana, or maybe want our public to think of GIJ as the most practical communication institution in Ghana. So this is what is unique about you. So there might be a lot of communication institutions, but they would say, as for GIJ, when you come here, it is very practical. They let you do this, they let you do that. So that is what sets you apart in the minds of your audience. More often than not, when you are positioning a product or a service or a brand, you look out for what the brand is good at and you bring it to the fore, so that you we are the number one this in this, or we are experts in that. So you set yourself apart like that. However, sometimes you may position yourself in a way that you aspire to be. So you may not be number one, but you may want to act such that you become the number one. So you create that perception in the minds. I don't know if I gave this example. You remember this alcoholic drink Golda. Now, a lot of the times when people hear or see Golda, they say, "Oh, Golda, there, it is alcohol, it's the beer for adults, big men." And then the club and the stars. The question is, how or why do people think like that? It is because of one way or the other how they have been made to think, how it has been presented to them. Yeah. Sometimes it could even be in the advertisement. Maybe you see some adverts and the people who you see maybe driving a certain car are often big men in the adverts. It creates something in your mind that, hey, if you are not like this or you're not like that, you cannot be part of this or that. That is positioning. But why are we discussing positioning? Positioning is important in strategy because remember, strategy is overall plan. What you want, how you are going to get it. Yeah, what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, all are under strategy. So if you know how you want to be seen, it informs your strategy. And that is why I'm talking about positioning this afternoon. Still under strategy, we talked about action and response strategy in class. Now, if you do not remember, let's go to the next slide so I jog your memory. Now, in class, we talked about action and response strategy, and then I said under action and response strategy, we have proactive strategies and then we have reactive strategies. We mentioned that proactive strategies are strategies that you, the organization, implement on your own without any external force forcing you to. And the reactive one is the opposite. Now, under proactive, we have action strategy and then we have communication strategy. And then under the reactive, we have commiseration, embarrassment, denial, etc. So, again, let me help jog your memory. Under proactive strategy, we have action and then we have communication. So let's go back, see the chart again. You see action and response strategy, and then we have proactive. And then under proactive, we have action strategies. So these are strategies, we are talking about proactiveness. So action, proactive strategies. And then the other one is the communication proactive strategy. So the action strategies are proactive things you do. Communication strategies are technically proactive things you say. Right. So let's go back. So you see the action and then the communication. So the action ones were the ones we talked about: organizational performance, audience participation, volunteerism, strategic philanthropy. You have the slides for this. So sometimes I bring certain slides in here to help jog your memory of some of the things we have discussed, so that you see the slides and then you go, it's in that other video, or that is what he sent to us, or that was what we discussed in class. Right. So you see action and then communication. And then we come to reactive strategies. Reactive strategies are strategies that are implemented because there's a necessity. Remember, we talked about certain things where maybe a crisis happens and one has to respond. And you can look at Mawako and what happened with their alleged food poisoning. You ask yourself, what kind of reactive strategy did they have? Did they have a proactive strategy? What was it? Now remember, proactive strategies are strategies you put in place to anticipate. And then the reactive ones are things that you probably were not able to anticipate and you are reacting to it. And these ones too are discussed in detail in the slides I gave you, so you can look at them. Still under strategy, now we come to developing the message strategy itself. So it says, this is where you begin treating your public as your audience. Who are we communicating to? And what are the various elements of effective communication? This is where you ask yourself questions like, who should present the message? You are developing your message strategy. Who is presenting the message? What appeals should we make in the message? How should we structure or arrange the message? What words should be used? What symbols? Now, by listening to this, I hope you are remembering this is what was sent in the last video, I think 2 days ago or so, one of the videos, where we discussed this in detail, how to develop your message strategy, and who should present the message. We discussed into detail why this person should or this person should not. And remember, crafting the message, it is all part of developing your message strategy. What shall I say? You people are laughing at her when she said, what shall I say? Now you are here. What shall you also say? How are you going to develop your message or craft your message? I hope you remember this video or this slide, so you can go to the video and re-listen, at least now with the idea of where it fits in the whole planning process. Now we come to step 3, which is tactics. Under tactics, we do 2 things: selecting communication tactics and then implementing the strategic plan. So that is where we are now. Strategic, the tactics. selecting your communication tactics, and then you implement. So let's look at selecting communication tactics. How do you select them? And then we move to how to implement them. So that one too was done, it was treated in a video. You would see this slide and remember that is where, so we are talking about selecting communication tactics. So that is where we discussed the effective use of language, using symbols, avoiding jargon. We also discussed what makes people act on a message. We discussed the 5-stage adoption process. So it means that if you are deciding on your message tactic, you ask yourself, you tell yourself, okay, if these are the processes people go through, what message, how should I craft my message so that it generates interest, or it moves them from awareness to interest, from interest to evaluation, evaluation to trial, adoption, and so on. Yeah. And then that is where we also discussed again concerning crafting or developing a message. That's where we talked about the various media platforms or media strategies that are available to you. So we had interpersonal, organizational, news media, advertising, and promotional. So these are various communication tactics that are available to you. And then under interpersonal, we give examples like personal involvement, where the tactics will be maybe open house, maybe media tours, those kind of things. They are all under interpersonal. And we talked about news media, or advertising and promotional media. Advertising and promotional media, we have something like print advertising, we have electronic advertising, we have out-of-home advertising. Under out-of-home advertising, for instance, we have signages and billboards because they are out of home. Yeah. Even aerial advertising, you see it in the skies. Maybe a plane is dragging something and people are reading it as it passes along. These are all tactics under advertising, and promotional media, or advertising and promotional tactics. So don't get confused when you hear communication tactics. These are the key ones, which is interpersonal communication tactics, organizational, news media, advertising and promotional. Under them, there are various tactics. And so if somebody wants to select a communication tactic, the person is selecting communication tactics from these 4 tactics presented here. Under these 4, there are so many available tactics. Yeah. And this one, I forgot which page it is. Let me check for you quickly, where you can see it in detail. This page 326. Let's see. Okay, so you go to page 332. From 332 onwards, you would see the various the major tactics over here and the various tactics under it. Yeah, as you scroll from there, going down, you'd see the various tactics under these major tactics, so that you decide which one you would want to employ when you're faced with any situation. And remember, your selection of tactics will depend on the strategy you have selected, the strategy you're using, and the strategy is also based on your goals and objectives. Yeah. So that is how it is connected. So moving on, implementing the strategic plan. So the first one, we have dealt with it under tactics. The second point under tactics, which is implementation. Now, when you are implementing a plan, you consider 2 things. Yeah. How you package it, and then how you schedule it. So packaging of the communication tactics, and then dealing with scheduling, and budgeting. So let's talk about packaging. When we say we are packaging a communication tactics, you realize that when you go to the pages I suggested to go to get examples of, hundreds of examples of tactics under the various major tactics that we have discussed in the pyramid right now, you would realize that there are so many. So the question is, if I have so many tactics that are available to me, and let's say I've selected 20, how am I going to deploy them? And that is what we are talking about now. We say you package it, you group them according to certain ideologies or interests or similarities. And that is what we are discussing right now. So when you look at the last bullet, it says tactics can be packaged into either via media category, via publics, via goals, via objectives, or via department. So when we say you can package it via media category, what we are trying to say is you can look at, you remember, look at this screen again, advertising and promotional media. You realize that under it, when you go to the page, it breaks down into various other media platforms that you can use: electronic, print, all those things, out of home. So you can decide to package or arrange your media tactics according to the media category that the tactics falls under. You can also arrange it according to your publics. You remember in your research stage, you can you had different publics, so you can decide, let me group all my tactics according to my public. So which of the tactics are targeting, if you're using GIG, which of the tactics are targeting lecturers? You group all those tactics as one. Yeah. Which of the tactics are targeting students? You group all those tactics as one, because you don't want your plan to be all over the place, haphazard. Like, so you have 20 tactics that you want to, how are you going to go about it? Which one are you starting with, and all those things. And the best thing is to group it or package them. And the types of packaging is what we are talking about. And we just finished talking about packaging it according to the various publics. You can also package it according to goals. So you may have about 3 different goals, and your tactics are covering all the goals. So you select, okay, my goal is to increase student enrollment at GIG. This tactic, yes, it goes to increase student enrollment. This tactic goes to increase student enrollment. No, this one, I also have another goal to make GIG the best university in Africa. So this tactic does not increase enrollment. No, it goes to this goal rather. So you are arranging the tactics according to the goals that it falls under, or you can arrange it according to the objectives it falls under, or the department it falls under in the organization. Because sometimes you go to an organization, it has various departments. And remember, when you are doing your analysis, you're analyzing the organization, you realize that you also analyze internally. So when you're doing the internal, you realize the organizations have departments. So maybe this tactic is supposed to help with a particular department. So you group them under such department. So that's how you can package your communication tactics, so it's not haphazard, so it is clear in your mind and in the minds of everybody who is paying attention to what you're doing. And of course, after you package it, you would have to schedule it. How often am I going to do this? How often am I going to do that? When am I going to do this, and when am I going to do that? Is this should the radio be before the TV interview, or should we play the jingles before we go out on float? You understand? And then, so what are the timelines? So that's what we're talking about, the scheduling. So you would have to do that too, as part of your planning process. So there's what we call the Gantt chart. Now, sometimes, well, most of the time, people use the Gantt chart in public relations to help in planning their task. Let me explain what you're seeing here, this diagram you're seeing here. So you see we have activity, the plan start date, plan duration, and then weeks. So look at the first one, client meeting. According to the plan, client meeting starts in week 1 and the duration is 1 week. So you see the colored portion is only week 1. You take agree on goals. Yeah. So you see it starts in week 1 and then the duration is for 1 week. So similar to the client meeting, it covers the same period. But when you come to benchmark research, that is the formative research, the person doing the strategic plan says benchmark research will start in week 2. That is after they have met the client, they have agreed on goals and all those things. Then they do their benchmark research. It says it will take 3 weeks. So it starts from week 2 to week 5. Yeah. And then certain objectives will come in week 4 and then it will take 1 week. So that is how the Gantt chart helps you schedule or plan your activities. So you can use it to schedule or plan the tactics that you have. So you can see, for instance, in there somewhere they have print announcements, volunteer training. So all the things that they'll be doing, they have this to help them, to guide them. So you can use that too if you're scheduling. Remember we are talking about scheduling here, the pattern and the frequency. So this one too, pattern, frequency, how often and how long it will take. So that's the Gantt chart for you. There are various charts. I think the book talks about 2 or 3 if you decide to go into the book to find out more. And then you come to budget. How much will it cost? Money must be funny in a rich man's world. So we come to budgeting. Budgeting, it says, is more than money. It is all the resources that you need to implement a tactic is a budget. It's part of your budget. So normally when you say, oh, what's the budget? Oh, it's 30 billion. No, not necessarily. There are certain things that are not money, but are part of your budget. Yeah. Okay. So now, there are 5 elements of budget. When it comes to budget, or 5 elements or categories. We have personnel, that is human resource, that is the people. And then we have material, that is examples are paper for brochures, the banner, if you're doing an open house. These are the materials you need. So it's also a category or an element of budget. Then there's media costs. And then there's equipment and facilities. So things you need like computers, printers, office or space to mount an interactive desk. Let's say you want to interact with people at the mall and then they give you one of the parking slots at the mall and then you pay for it. Yeah, so it's a facility. The printers you would use, all those things, it's part of your budget. And then the administrative costs, telephone calls you make, you pay. You have to deliver something to a client, you pay, photocopying and all those things. So these are the 5 elements or categories of a budget. And so if you're planning and you're supposed to do a budget, realize that a great budget will consider all these 5. Now let us look at an example. Look at this example here. We have flyers. We have item, description, amount, and then if you want to add remarks, that's fine. So you see the item, flyers. It is under material. That's why I put into bracket material. Flyer distributors, it is under personnel. They are the ones, human resource. Yeah. So flyer distributors, description, to give you an idea of what it is about. They are, I said to convey students. This is supposed to be to distribute flyers among students or whoever, the target group. And the cost is 20,000 cedis. And then you have Mr. Onoma. And then the description is, his awesome presence brings grace to the occasion. Of course, that is understandable. And the amount to get Mr. Onoma to be part is 30 billion. And it is yet to be paid. Now the question is, where does Mr. Onoma's involvement fall? If you want to go for Mr. Onoma to be part of whatever thing you're doing, your tactic or your strategy, is it part of material? Is it personnel? Is it media cost? Is it equipment? That one's for you to find out. So you see the rest are there. Internet. Oh, I did not give it to you. Okay, I'm sure when you look at this, you realize that internet falls under administrative costs. So no headaches over there. All right, so you have an idea of the budget. Now, when people are budgeting, they sometimes look at the question is, how do I know how much is enough? Well, sometimes you do competitive parity. That is, you look at your competitors, how much are they spending on their activities, and then you also say, then I'll do same. But that is when we say your competitors, if you are starting a bread business and you say you want to compete with A1, competitive parity, remember, maybe they might have more capital than you do. So that is sometimes the downside of it. You cannot do competitive parity with people who have more resources than you do. But yeah, competitive parity. So maybe MTN and Vodafone, maybe they might decide, how much is Vodafone spending? Let us also spend that much in our communication activities. Same as before budgeting is another type of deciding on how much budget you would need. Same as before basically means same as before. So last year we used this, so this year too we are going to use about that same figure. Percentage of sales, that is where you look at your sales figures and say, we have 100,000 CDs from sales. Hooray! We are going to use 10% of that for as our budget. So maybe every year you decide to do 10%, or maybe you can decide 15%, 20%. That one, it's up to you. But you do a percentage of the sales, and then it's all you can afford budgeting. That one is basically what we are saying is your pocket that will show whether you can or not. And then there's a cost benefit analysis budget. So you look at the cost of the activities that you're doing, and then the benefit. What is it going to bring us? Then you weigh. Okay, then this is how much we are going to get from these activities, then this is how much we are willing to invest in it. And I forgot to mention this when we got to the packaging. When you're packaging the messages, you remember packaging according to goals, packaging according to objectives, packaging according to whatever it is. When you go to page 399 of the book, 399, it gives you a clearer picture. It just draws things for you. You would applaud what they have done over there. So I suggest you go check it out. In rounding up, we look at evaluation. Yeah, evaluation. Now, to evaluate basically means to find out how effective whatever it is you're doing has been, and to be able to know that you have to measure. So how will outcomes specified in the program goal and objectives be measured? So how are you going to measure, and how are you going to know that, Charlie, this is what I have done? So how will I know if the program is working or worked? What have we accomplished? What remains to be done? What benchmarks can help us next time? Now, remember, there's already a video on that, so I'm not going to go into details, but to jog your memory, remember Wilcox, Cameron, and Reber, they have this how to measure the levels of measurement in public relations, the basic, intermediate, and advanced, and then they show you which kind of measurement they believe is basic or intermediate or advanced. Yeah. And you also remember McNamara also has a pyramid: input, output, outcome. Yeah. Now, if you want to know how to measure, take for instance, if you want to measure inputs, see the right side, applicable methodologies. It tells you if you want to measure inputs, it's maybe peer review or awards or readability tests or whatever. If you want to measure outputs, you can do interviews, complaint decline, experiments. Now, the steps in this, or the levels in this, is similar to the levels placed over here by Wilcox, Cameron, and Reber. So advanced is like outcome, intermediate is output, and then the basic is like input. So the same measurement strategies you can use for this pyramid can be used for the previous one. So thank you for your time, and I hope this helps you prepare better for the examination. And if you have any question, comment, or contribution, please do let me know in the comment section. The final thing, I have class rep and I have this video I send. Now, if you do not hear something from my class rep for what was it, strategic PR, the class rep is Jacqueline. For advertising, the class rep is Foley. Now, if you do not hear a message from either of the two or from me directly, please, it is not true. I do not give information through anybody but my reps. I am a communication person, and I know how haphazard communication can be when the channel is not consistent and when the channel of communication is not known. My channel of communication is my class representatives, or the things I say in the video or during lectures. Asa. Right. Okay, so it's nice getting to know all of you, and hope to interact some more in the future. Au revoir, à bientôt.